Hello, so now we'll be continuing with the example session for non-verbal intelligence. Okay, so right, so like I said, I'll just take you through the theory first, so then it'll be sort of like, you know, a good recap. I mean, we won't be doing the theory all again. For that you have the theory lecture, but I'll just take you through everything that we did, right? So for the first thing that we did was the topics. Basically, you have angular movement of designs, mirror image, water image, figure completion, formation of figures, embedded figures, counting of figures. And to this, you also have things. These are the questions that we discussed. In the last session, we discussed questions from figure analogy. I mean, there is no theory for these. This is why these are not included in the theory. But when you do questions from the point of view of doing questions, there are also questions from figure analogy, figure classification, and what was the third thing? Do you guys remember? It was figure series. Okay, so there are like 3 more topics from the point of view of questions. From the point of view of theory, this is just all that you have. Okay, and we did questions. So in the last example session, we did questions from 3 of these. Okay, right. So moving on, and then we learned about angular movement of designs. The main content, like the main part of this topic is clockwise movement and anti-clockwise movement. And then another thing, you also need to have a rough idea of how much 45 degree, 90 degree, 180 degree and 360 degree is, both clockwise and how it looks anti-clockwise also. Okay. After that, then we studied mirror images, just how it works. This is the main point, is that it gets laterally inverted. As I explained to you, the left becomes right and the right becomes left. And then we went through the mirror images of capital letters, of small letters, and of numbers. Okay, and then there are some certain letters for which the letter is the same as the mirror image, like H, I, all of these we discussed in the class, right? So these are certain T, all of these U, all of these are certain letters for which the mirror image is the same as the actual letter. And then for small letters also, we just went through the same thing. We just looked at the letters for which the mirror image is the same as the actual letter. So we saw I, we saw L, things like that. Okay, and then for numbers, again, there are from 1 to 9. There are 2 numbers for which the mirror image and the actual number is the same. That is 0 and 8. Okay, moving on. We did an example, and then what did we have? Water image. Water image also, like I said, it's basically, so in mirror images what you have is vertical inversion. In water images you have in mirror images what you have is lateral inversion. In water images what you have is vertical inversion. Okay, so in mirror images the figures will be laterally inverted. In water image the figures will be vertically inverted. That is what we learned. Okay, right. So basically, in simple terms, in layman terms, the LHS and the RHS remain unchanged. Basically, the left hand side and the right hand side remain unchanged, but the upper and the lower parts get interchanged. That is how it is for water image. Okay, and then we learned about figure completion. So right, so what did we learn about figure completion? Basically, what you do is you try to find out the missing part of an incomplete figure. And then we also discussed questions on figure completion. And then, so under figures we had mainly 3 things, right? Figure completion, formation of figures, embedded figures, 4 things, also counting of figures. And then we did formation of figures. Basically, how do you form figures? So in that, there was this important concept of dice, which I taught you guys. We saw like a whole video and images, and just I also showed it with my hands, you know, just to understand this dice concept. We had that, and then we had something called embedded figures, right? So a figure embedded in another figure. So questions on that also, we did questions. And then counting of figures. Basically, you're just asked to count the number of occurrence of a certain shape in a given figure. That also we did, right? So this is all that you have as theory. There is quite some theory in nonverbal intelligence. Okay, now that being done, let's move ahead. So we did 5 examples in the last example session. For this example session also, we might discuss 5 or 6 examples, not sure, we'll see. Okay, so find the mirror image of the following. Okay, so I'll, for the last example session, just the way I did it, I gave you time to think of the question. I'll do the same thing, but try making it fast though. Okay, so I'll give you time. Just try to think what the answer will be. This is the question. You have to find the mirror image of this. You have 4 options. Okay, your time starts now. Okay, time's up. So this is the figure that you have, and you need to find the mirror image of this. So what was the first thing that we said? That the left hand side becomes the right hand side and the right hand side becomes the left hand side. So if I divide this here, the left hand side is empty, right? So what can I guess? In the answer figure, the right hand side is going to be empty. So A cannot be the answer, because for A, the right hand side is not empty, right? So A cannot be the answer. For it has to be B, C, or D. Now, what is going to happen? Another thing that we learned in mirror images is basically that the top and the bottom do not change. The top is the bottom and the bottom is the top. So here you have a line at the first, okay, if you divide it here, you basically have a line at the first half, right? So this line at the first half has to remain at the first half, because we have learned that the top and the bottom do not change. It's just that the left and the right that changes, right? So here you've already gotten your answer. It has to be D. It's not B, not C. Why? Because in B and C, the top changes. So here the bottom is supposed to be empty, right? The bottom half is empty, and that has to be the same for the question also. Okay, so the bottom half is supposed to be empty, and so you have gotten your answer. This is the answer. Okay, moving on. We already did one mirror image question in the last example class, right? So that's 2 mirror image questions, and that's it. I mean, once you get this way of thinking, it's pretty simple, fairly simple. If you want more questions to have, so we are discussing like different types of questions. If the questions I feel might be tough for you, I'm also discussing 2 questions from every type. But if you want to have a practice of doing more questions, we'll have an assignment that we'll give it to you with lots of questions, so you can do that. Moving on. Choose the water image. Okay, now we are moving to water image. So what was the thing about water images? Basically what you have, the kind of inversion you have is vertical inversion. Okay, and what else did we learn? So what does vertical inversion mean? The left hand side and the right hand side remains the same. No change for these. But for the top and the bottom, these get interchanged. So the top becomes the bottom and the bottom becomes the top. Okay. So how do you find the water image for rice? So basically, one thing is that the left and the right do not change. So here, if the word starts from R and ends at S, in the water image also, the word will start from something that looks like R and end at something that looks like E. Okay. So from that, you know that B and D are not the options. Why? Because B and D, these start from E and end at R. So obviously not this. Okay. So it has to be A or C. So this is also the same thinking process that we used for the mirror image question. Where is it? This question. So here we said, since it's a mirror image, what happens? The left hand side becomes the right hand side and the right hand side becomes the left hand side, right? So what did we do? We guessed that here, since it starts with 2, the answer has to end with 2. And here, since it ends with 5, the answer has to start with 5. And from that, we were able to get rid of 2 options. Right. So for mirror, whatever is there for mirror image, it's like the exact opposite for water image. So in a mirror image, the left hand and the right hand side, they are the opposites. The top and bottom remain same. For water image, the top and bottom change and the left and the right remain the same. Okay. So it's not B or D. Now we need to choose between A and C. Okay. So let's take a good look at this. So R. I'll just write an R here. So do you guys remember the trick I taught you to find water images? How, if you have a figure that's given to you, how do you find the water image? Do you remember? I'll just give you some time. Basically what you do is you find 180-degree top to bottom. So if it's a figure like this, you just try imagining how would it look if I rotated it like this. Okay, for mirror image, this is what you do. For water image, this is what you do. So something that looks like this, you just try to flip it down, right? For mirror image, you try to flip it over on its side. For water image, you just try to flip it right down. Okay, so how will this look is my question. So for something that looks like this, if I were to flip it down, it will be, just imagine you have this R. If I flipped it down, it will be something like this. Right, something like this. Do you get that? Just imagine that you have this R and you're just rotating this. If you directly, right, so if you just had this R with you and if you just rotated it, this is what you will get, right? Okay, so this is your R, and now just imagine that you're flipping this R down, as in, you know, just rotating it. I think I can actually show it to you. I'll just write it in a, okay. This is how your R looks, right? So now if you flipped it over, this is what you will get. I'll just try to show it with this. So basically, I have the R here. This is how your R looks, right? I mean, this is how we are saying that this looks. If I flipped, okay, this actually does not support flipping. Oh, all you can do is rotate. So this does not support flipping, but yeah, flipping gives you this. Okay, so all you need to do is just think of how will it look if it was flipped down. Okay, so now let's just take a look at R that's given. How will R look if I just flipped it down, right? So R, if you were to just flip it down, like I said, top to down, 180-degree, just flip it down. It will look something like, just imagine that you're taking this and you're flipping this down. This remains the same and this becomes something like this. This is how the R is going to look. So basically, for example, okay, say this is your R, okay? And if I were to just flip it down like this is how it looks, right? So your R that looks like this, just flip it down, this is how it looks. That's it. Okay, so you have gotten this. So now this is how you expect your R to look like, and this does not work, so A has to be the option. You have already gotten your answer. As simple as that. Okay. So the thing about the easy part about such mirror image and water image questions is that you don't have to do a lot of questions. I mean, you don't have to find the water image or mirror image of the whole word. Usually just with one letter or two letters or like half of the letters or maybe a bit more than half, you get the answer. So here we only had to look at R. Two things we looked at. One was that the first letter remains the first letter and the last letter remains the last letter, and the second was we tried to just look at one letter R and we got the answer. So it's as simple as that. So you might not know how all letters look, but if you can just know one letter, that's it, that's enough. But yeah, when you try to learn everything. I mean, if once you get the concept for one letter, you can easily figure it out for all other letters, right? Now if it is difficult for you, you can also just sort of try to learn this table. You have this whole table, right? But I would suggest you to go through the learning process and try to understand how exactly you get the water image, right? That learning process will be very useful to you. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, I just reached the end. So where were we? We were at example 6, right? Okay, so we were at example 7. We are done with example 7. Moving on. Choose the correct image of the following: AB4, 5CD, 6, 7. Okay, how will this look? Again, since we are talking about water image, you know that the first has to remain the first and the last has to remain the last. But here it doesn't work because AA 7 7, AA 7 7. So they are smart this time. They realized that for the previous question we figured it out, but they have given us a tough question now. Right? I mean, it's not tough. You can still figure it out. Okay. So let's look at the first letter A, or let's do a different thing. Let's look at the first number 7. Okay, look at the options. For 7, all of these options are the same, right? The 7 here, 7 here, 7 here, 7 here looks the same. So there is no point. So no need to look at 7. Let's look at A, because for A, it's different. Okay, but still, okay, if you see A, you see here it's the same. Here, 3 of these A's are the same, all 3 are the same. So even if A works, we will have to okay, so yeah, we'll go by looking at the options. Look at the A's in the options. It definitely cannot be this. Why? Because in a water image the figure will change, right? So for A, if you move it by 180 degree, there will be some kind of difference. It's not going to be the same, because what is at the top? Okay, see, this is your A. What is at the top has to come at the bottom. So this part of A, so here the first half of A is open and the second half of A is closed. In the figure, the first half will be closed and the second half will be open. So it's not going to be this for sure. The other 3 options you have, all 3 A's are the same. So there's no point thinking about what the water image will be for A. Right, moving on. B. The options for B, all 3 options are the same. So again, not B, no point in even looking at B. Moving on to 4. Look at the options that you have for 4. All 3 options are the same. Again, no need to look at 4. Now look at 5. All 3 options are the same. No need to look. Look at C. All 3 options are the same. No need to look. Look at D. All 3 options are the same. No need to look. But look at 6. Look at the images of 6 that they have given. All 3 options are not the same. Right. So for in option B, you have a 6 like this. In option C, you have a 6 like this. And in option D, you have a 6 like this. All 3 are different. So if you can find out what the right water image is for 6, you are done. You will get your answer because you have 3 different options, right? So just think of it. Something that looks like this, 6. If you were to take the water image of this, basically flip this over 180 degree top to bottom, what will you get? Okay, I'll give you some time, just try to figure it out, okay? Right. So that's enough time, I feel. So basically, if you were to just directly flip this over 90 degree, you would, I think, get something like this. Right. So just think. I have it's difficult to make a 6. Okay, just think this is a 6. Hope this passes off for a 6. If I were to flip it, this is how it looks, right? So just that. So just try to imagine flipping the thing 180 degree top to bottom. So just imagine this is a 6. You have a 6 in your hand and you're just flipping it top to bottom. How will it look like? So this is the answer and you have this only as this option. So B has to be the answer. If you want, you can cross check it with like a different letter. But the thing is, see, here everything else is the same. For C, B and D, all options are same except this character. So it has to be this. I mean, baki sub options are not of any use. So you can only look at 6. So whatever you feel is the right one for 6, that's the only way to find out the answer. Okay, so that's it. I mean, it's not difficult. It's just you need to get the hang of it, hang of doing water image questions and imagining, envisioning. So just this top to bottom 180, I think is the easiest way you can think of it. Okay, moving on. Select the figure from the options which, when placed in a blank space of the given figure, would complete the pattern. Okay, I basically need the figure which would complete the pattern. Okay, this is your problem figure. Take a good close look at the problem figure. Okay, actually, you can sort of guess this by intuition. Like our brain has this, brain sees a pattern and brain will want to complete that pattern because our brain likes having things organized and complete, right? So I mean, by intuition itself you can guess that this would be the answer, but just try figuring it out. Like just try thinking of it in terms of the patterns that you have. So basically here, if you see, you have basically a square like figure, right? So in order to complete this, here also you need to have this part. Okay, something like this has to be there. So you don't have it here, so not A. You don't have it here, so not C. It has to be B or D. Now between B and D, what is the difference? Here you have one arc, but here you have 2 arcs. So 2 arcs will not fit here. Why? Because in this figure, that does not match. None of these figures have two arcs, right? So it has to be B. That's it. Done. As simple as that. Okay, so that's another way of thinking about it if you have difficulty solving these questions. But yeah, this was a fairly easy one. Just listen to your brain, and your brain will actually show you. Right, moving on. Select the figure from the options which, when placed in the blank space of the given figure, would complete the pattern. Basically, I need the figure which, when placed in the blank space of a given figure, would complete the pattern. Okay, so this is my problem figure. I have it here, and I need to see what is it when placed will complete the pattern, right? Okay. So in this is actually comes under figure analogy also. Actually, it does come under figure analogy, but also one more other concept. I'm not telling you what the concept is. Just try to find out the relations between this figure and this figure. Using that, try to guess what you will get from this. Okay. And also try to find out what concept this comes from. One concept is figure analogy, but there is a second concept. Just try thinking if you can figure out what that concept is. Okay, so there are two things for you to do. One is to figure out the second concept. The second is to find out the answer. I'll give you some time. Right, so we are done. Right, so here basically the second concept that I was talking about is mirror image. What you have here is also mirror image, the concept of mirror image. Okay, anyway, let's just look at this. How do you find out? Look at this figure. You see, do you see that? Okay, the top and the bottom are unchanged, right? So here you have a line towards the top, here it remains the same. Here you see that the arrow that points towards the right ends up pointing towards the left. You have a blank line at the left, and that line here is at the right. So you can sort of think, okay, this is probably what mirror, I was about to say mirror analogy, no, mirror image. So you can sort of guess, okay, this might be mirror image, right? And here also you have an arrow that points towards the left down, right? So it's bottom left, and here it points towards the bottom right. So what is at the bottom stays at the bottom. Bottom left does not become top left, so it's not water image, but bottom left becomes bottom right, so it's mirror image, right? So from that we guess that this is mirror image. So then you just try to find the mirror image for this figure. So basically to find the mirror image, the easiest thing is just look at what is at the right and the left. So here the right and the left are the same. The triangle is the same. It's not useful. You just need a triangle, okay? But here at the right you have a line that goes downwards. So what should happen in the mirror image? At the left you should have a line that goes downwards. So you know it's not going to be A or B, because in both of these spaces at the left you have a line that goes upwards. So not this. Here at the left you have a line that goes upwards. So you can guess that in the mirror image at the right you will have a line that goes upwards. Okay, so okay, but that's not useful because in both of these places you have a line that goes upwards, right? Now just try thinking if there is anything else. Another thing you can think is, okay, at the top you have a line that goes towards the right. So here I can guess that the top line will go towards the left, right? Because right becomes left. And yes, I've gotten a line that goes towards the left. Here it does not work, so not C, and D is the answer. I've gotten the answer, right? So that's it. If you want, you can just cross check with this. Here at the bottom you have a line towards the left, so here the bottom line will be towards the right, and so you've gotten it. The answer is D. So example 10, answer is D, and that is the concept. Okay, so we are done with example 10. And right, so this is basically that you have How you find it? We'll just do one more question. Oh, this is the same question. Okay, I think I would have added the same slide twice, so just don't mind that. Okay, I'll just delete this slide. Okay, so example 10, moving on to example 11. Select the figure from the options which when placed in the blank space of the given figure would complete the pattern. I basically want the figure that would complete the pattern. Okay, just take a look at the figure that's given to you. Right, so what could it possibly be is the question, right? So one thing that you can guess intuitively is that it will be something like this. This will be the border of it, but that's not of any use because for 1, 2, 3 and 4 it works. Now another thing, so try to see if you can find any pattern here. Here you see that there is a triangle. Okay, bad choice of color. Let me think of something like, I don't know, red. Here there is a triangle that's formed. Do you see this? There's another triangle here. There's an, okay, this is, do you know what this is similar to? This is similar to the very first question, I think, that we did on figure completion. Let me just let's just revisit that. I think the very first question we did on figure completion would have been not this. This is embedded figures, formation of figures, figure completion, right? So here also we had the same thing. We basically had two triangles. Okay, and do you know, like we try to find that, so this triangle, so we then guess that here also we need to have a triangle like this, right? So it's the same, it's not the same question, it's a different question, but mainly the same concept. This is one of the reasons why doing questions is very useful. No matter how much theory you study, if you do not have practice doing questions, it is a huge loss. Okay, you have to practice doing questions. Okay, so anyway, so from this we can guess that here also the figure has to be something. It has to be a triangle that starts from one end, goes like this and ends at the end of the circle. Okay, so do you see a triangle here? No, here the triangle is something like this, not this. Do I see a triangle here? No, again there's no triangle, it's just something like this. Here I see a triangle. It starts from one end, it goes like this and it ends at the end of the circle. This is a possible option. Okay, actually 3 is the only option we have. Here also I don't have anything like this, right? So 3 is the option we can guess. Now if you want to cross check it with something else, you can also always do that. Try just looking at okay, what else do you want to cross check it with? Possibly, basically here you have, okay, I'll choose a different color. What do you think I should choose? Some orangish color, it's a bit different. Basically here you have something like this being formed, right? So here also something like this should be formed with horizontal lines. Here you have horizontal lines, so here also horizontal lines. So here also you see that there are horizontal lines. So there is something like this that could be formed, right? So we have got the answer. 3 is the option, right? So that's it. Now we have even more questions. That's why I said, you know, under non-verbal intelligence, it's important that you do a lot of questions because you have a lot of topics, right? So we'll have one more example session and then we'll be done with it. Just one example session should suffice. So right, anyway, so we're done with non-verbal intelligence questions up to question 11. We'll do, I'm not sure, maybe like 15 to 20, I mean, not 50 to 20 more questions, 5 to 10 more questions we'll try doing. But as of now, we're done with non-verbal intelligence. Okay.